Welcome to Footy Center podcast series, powered by Ultra Press Media Company.
It is another episode of FC Pitchside Podcast with me, Thierry Nyan, and I'm excited to bring you this particular one. And I'm doing this with Sicho and Akomia. They join me again in this episode. Jonathan Menson is still unavailable, but he will definitely join us in subsequent episodes. Now, remember, you could be watching this on YouTube. What we want you to do is to hit that subscribe button and also like this video, and please share, just so we can build a very, very good and huge audience with you in it. And also would want you, if you're listening to this on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating. We definitely appreciate that. And remember to hit that follow button there as well. Now, today in this episode, we'll be looking at the hot race in the English Premier League. Not for the title, because we know who has won it. It's Liverpool, but we are focusing on who will make the UEFA Champions League. I think the top two spots are virtually sealed. It's Liverpool and Arsenal. Arsenal have begun faltering, and we'll look at the gap between Arsenal and the third place team. But really, the real contention has been who will be occupying the remaining spots. Remember, England are almost secured a 5-spot group getting into the UEFA Champions League next season. And currently, it is Man City, Chelsea, Newcastle United, Aston Villa, who are fighting, and Nottingham Forest, who are fighting for the remaining 3 spots. Who is going to be getting it? We'll get into that looking at the matches for this particular weekend past. And also be looking at the Italian Serie A, because it remains one of 2 very interesting title races in Europe. I'm talking about that in Spain. And then also we'll talk about Spain, because Barcelona and Real Madrid are still picking up points, although coming from behind. So we'll look at how they are doing that and what it means for the remaining games of the season in Spain there as well. And then also Harry Kane has struck some luck. He's hit gold, but this time in Germany. Oh, did I say this time? The only time he's done that, and it's been in Germany. So we'll look at that. And then we'll also be looking at several others, including the super clash in Ghana between the 2 top teams in the country, Hearts versus Kotoko in the Super Clash. We'll be looking at what happened there in Accra and see what it means for the various teams as well. My panel will be breaking that down. But also, remember, at the very tail end of the show, we have the quiz. And definitely would get very interesting, considering there's last week's revenge mission, possibly for Akomia, and maybe a continuance of dominance for Sicho at Trim. So now let me just introduce the guys now. Sicho, you're welcome to this episode.
Thank you very much, man. How are you doing?
How are you doing?
I'm
I'm
great.
good.
I'm
I'm
great.
good.
I'm
I'm
great.
good. I'm
Plenty
good.
to talk about. Looking forward to it.
Exactly. And Akomia, how are you doing too?
I'm good. Nice to hear from you and Sicho once again.
Now, we start with the English Premier League. And I would want to start with Manchester City and their game against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, I listened to a bit of commentary before that game, and people kept talking about how Man City could be dropping points because Wolves, for about 6 games, hadn't really dropped points. They hadn't lost a game. It could be really tricky for Man City. Kevin De Bruyne came up with the goods. They won 3 points in the bag, and they're still climbing.
City are ending their season well. They've traditionally under Pep Guardiola ended their seasons well, except that this season they started sometime a little too late, all the way in the slump for way too long. And City, look, as bad the season that they've had per their own standard, they are still capable of making Champions League place. Or even now, having beaten Wolverhampton, they are capable of finishing in second place. So I think a Champions League place, perhaps an FA Cup victory, would be a season that
Yeah.
many other clubs in the Premier League would consider successful. But because of their recent success, it almost looks like only an FA Cup and not competing for the league is a failure. But when we take a pause and look at how they've bounced back and now finishing in Champions League places, maybe we can cut them some slack and say, well, he hasn't gone according to plan, but it's been decent.
And Akomia, what do you think of Manchester City? Do you think they make the Champions League, and would that be a successful season for them?
Yes, I think they really need the Champions League next season, especially looking at what they've gone through, losing their best player who won the Ballon d'Or for most part of the season. We've seen Kevin De Bruyne on and off, injury situation, comes back, scores. not being consistent within the setup, a little bit of an issue with Ellen Haaland, but they had a superb January transfer window by adding Kusanov, Umar Mamush, and the rest of the guys. So I think spending
Yeah.
that amount of money in the January transfer window per what they face at the beginning of the season, this is the right moment for them to pick up the momentum towards the end of the season, qualify for the Champions League, win at least a trophy, and continue to maintain a certain standard you set for yourself as a club in terms of winning trophies every single season. This is on a good note for them, and I hope they finish in the top four and they qualify for the Champions League.
But then also, guys, let's look at the remaining fixtures for Man City, because it looks like for all the sides chasing the UCL, they seem to have the most favorable fixtures. They play against Southampton away at the St Mary's, then they play at home to Bournemouth, and then they play away to Fulham. I mean, Bournemouth and Fulham can be tricky, but these are naturally beatable teams for Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, especially around this time of the season where Bournemouth and Fulham might be comfortable with their places. You're thinking the Man City have, and to be fair, when City have won games in recent games, they've played well. The game against Aston
Yeah.
Villa, they played well. In this game against
Yeah.
Wolverhampton, I thought they would look good. Defensively, they are a lot more assured. They are creating tons of chances. So City are beginning to find a bit of formula and rhythm to their style, and they're beginning to play well. And when City play well in the Premier League, a lot of teams struggle to get the better of them. And so, yeah, I think against Fulham, against Bournemouth, which are the two tricky games coming up, I still think City have got enough in them to go through those games. Also, knowing that all the other teams around them, I'm not sure, have got it in them to win the rest of their games. Even if they drop
Yeah.
points somewhere, because of the inconsistencies in the other teams, they might still not affect their chance of finishing in the top four. I strongly believe City will finish in the top five and make a place in Champions League.
That's very true there. Now let's go to the other game, and that's apparently it's the biggest game of the weekend. Has been the biggest game of the weekend. Chelsea against champions Liverpool. There was the lap of honor for Liverpool, done by the Chelsea players as is customary in the English Premier League. And I remember there was a
I hear
story.
Chelsea have done more lap of honors than any club in the history of the Premier League. Like
It,
it's
it, it
like
doesn't matter. It just means that Chelsea are always placed in May to play against potential champions, which is really unfair to the club. But I mean, yeah, I mean,
interesting.
why not? We respect winners, and I remember there was a story by one of the Man United players who said when Chelsea won that in 2005, Man United had to do a lap of honor for Chelsea, and Sir Alex Ferguson's message to the players at the time was, they deserve it. You played it into their hands. They've taught you how to win it because you used to win it. Now they've claimed it from you. Show them the respect. And if it hurts, that is how it's supposed to hurt. Come back better next time.
So
I'm pretty sure it did.
is that what Maresca will be telling the boys today?
I don't think Maresca has motivational skills. I don't think Maresca has any motivational skills in him
AI
to
Pep
even use these
Guardiola.
lines.
Ah!
But let's go to the game itself. So Chelsea against Liverpool, and I don't think a lot of people expected the scoreline. Not because Chelsea aren't good or Liverpool are bad, but it's just because Liverpool have been heads and shoulders above every team in the Premier League this season. They've had their off days, but 3-1 result, was it expected? I'll start with you, Akomia.
Yes, I think it was expected. I didn't see Liverpool winning this particular
Oh,
game.
really?
Oh, yes. You see, the difference between the two teams was hunger. You look at what Chelsea is fighting for, and you look at what Liverpool is fighting for. I know they'll be motivated to reach the 90 point mark and even surpass it at some point in time. Because if they were supposed
Right.
to win all their games, you're talking about
Hmm.
in and around 94 points. But
Yeah.
you look at Chelsea and where they find themselves, they're in competition against Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Manchester City, even Arsenal included, because the difference between Chelsea and Arsenal now is 4 points. And you
Mm,
would understand that there is a need to win all your games towards the end of the season to qualify for the Champions League next season. It will really
yeah.
be embarrassing that we are having 5 teams representing England in the Champions League, and you don't find yourself after over there in the Champions League after spending huge amount of money in the transfer market. So it was expected that this Chelsea team is going to pull something out of the bag. And on our weekend show, I was emphatic that Cole Palmer was going to break his curse in terms of goal scoring.
Oh,
Even
really? You did say
yes,
that?
yes, even through a penalty, because the game was written all over the game that some things were going to happen. One,
Mm,
Chelsea winning, two, penalty in this particular game. And I was even surprised today there was no red card. and you would understand that.
Is it because you thought the stakes were so high between the two teams? I thought Chelsea wanted it more because clearly Liverpool had won the title already. Why do you think that Liverpool were going to be fierce in this game?
Um, on the other hand side, I thought maybe they are going to be a little bit bullish with some of the players trying to fight for their positions within the team going to the summer. For example, Endo Wataru, Kwanzaa, there have been
Mm,
several stories
mm,
about them that these guys are going to leave Liverpool come next season. So you look at it and you look at how they are also going to try and prove something in the long run. And there was also going to be Darwin Nunes, who can do anything throughout the game. He can literally go for in for a tackle, get a yellow card, the next moment you see him fighting somebody else and it's a red card
yeah.
because of the tension of the game. But I think I'm happy for two players within the Chelsea setup. One, Cole Palmer, two, Moises Caicedo. You look at Cole Palmer, the huge influence he had in this particular Chelsea setup last season. Unfortunately, they could not qualify for the Champions League. They had to resort to the Europe Conference League. And you look at
Hmm.
Moises Caicedo for the huge amount he was bought for. There were a lot of complaints about him. He did not have a proper preseason last season. Me,
Right.
for instance, I'm one particular person who loves Moises Caicedo from his days at Brighton and Hove Albion.
You don't like him
Um,
at Chelsea?
no, I'm yet to be fully convinced about his performances at Chelsea.
But
Despite the fact that he
I
has,
don't know. But I think to digress a bit. I think it's people who don't watch him week in week out.
yeah,
I think Caicedo is an even better player than he was at Brighton.
as it stands, I would say no, because I watched him most of the time at Brighton and Hove Albion, especially with McAllister in that middle of the pack. He was
Right.
that solid ball retention on point.
Have you seen Caicedo's numbers this season?
Yes, I've
He's in the
actually,
top three of every midfield category,
yes, I've actually
sometimes
seen it.
leading.
Yes, I've actually seen it. But the reason why the standards between Brighton and Hove Albion and Chelsea are different is the caliber of the club. And there was a little bit of
Yeah.
pressure on his shoulders, and the expectations was way above some of the things that we used to even talk about on social media and all of this stuff. I think this season he has moved a step above what we saw for him last season. Now, the
Okay.
next level is about the consistency. I've seen games where he has been off this season for
Hmm.
Chelsea. I've seen games where he has
Okay.
actually had troubles, even playing from the right back position, inverting as a midfielder. I've seen all of these
Right.
things. But when you look at Brighton and Hove Albion, when he was there for 34 matches to 38 matches, I'm telling you, out of maybe 38 matches, you have like 32, 34 matches where Moises Caicedo is at the top there, averaging ratings not less than even 7.5 consistently, game after game,
Hmm.
match after match. And he
Okay.
was even involved in the build-ups of Brighton and Hove Albion most of the time, alongside with Alexis McAllister. But at Chelsea, sometimes it has to rely on Enzo Fernandez to drop deep in between the centre backs to pick up the ball, whilst Caicedo mops up all the unnecessary stuff that happens when Chelsea loses possession. And he has done
Right.
so well, and I'm happy for him. And Kopama has also
Okay.
gotten on the score sheet. Good game, and I think Chelsea needed this win more than any other thing.
Sicho, I'm looking at Chelsea's remaining fixtures here, and I see Liverpool, Newcastle United, Manchester United. I mean, they've played Liverpool now, so there's Newcastle United waiting them away at the St James's Park. There's Man United at Stamford Bridge. There's Nottingham Forest away as
Yeah.
well. What do you think?
Yeah, that was why it was very important that Chelsea won the game today against Liverpool. Because these three games, I think in the run in, Chelsea have got the more difficult fixtures going into it
Yeah,
because
I think they have the most
they,
difficult fixtures, to be
yeah,
honest.
because they are playing against two of the teams that are also vying for the same things that Chelsea are vying for.
Right.
They'll go to the St James's Park and it's going to be tough. And then they'll play against Manchester United, who I think that are not good enough. Chelsea should be able to find a way. But again, it's Man United. Chelsea's record against them hasn't been great in recent times. And they'll play against Nottingham Forest, who by the time of the season might still
Hmm.
be a result away from finishing in that top five. So yeah, Chelsea have got cracking games to come. But Chelsea's home record in this year has been very good, or in the last couple of months has been very good. When they've played at home, they've got some good results going, and that is how come they've still been able to keep in touch with that top five places. And yeah, they would have to win those three games coming up to cement it, and hopefully they get those points to get above those teams. Slightly on Liverpool though, I think this is the reason why club slots, I should say, could only win the Premier League and not necessarily compete in others. It's just the squad limitation that he's got. Anytime he has to rest a couple of his key players, his team has
Right.
struggled. And so we
Hmm.
saw it in the Champions League that he didn't trust his French players to do the job against Southampton. Even though they were stretched against PSG in Paris, he still played a lot of his key players in the game against Southampton over that weekend. And then he went to repeat the same players in the game against PSG at Anfield. And the team got stretched,
Hmm.
they got kicked out. But when in the FA Cup, when he played his younger team, he got kicked out. And today we saw it against Chelsea that they were so off the pace. He changed a couple of players in the team, and the team's dynamics and the team's strength wasn't the same.
But
So
but but but
Liverpool,
that's but that's but that but that's a big problem for Slot going into next season then,
yeah,
because I
it
mean
is.
the core of the team still played. Allison was in post. Van Dijk was in defense.
Yeah,
Salah played. I
yeah.
mean, if you have the spine of your team still playing, and you change certain cogs around them, and suddenly you lose the identity of your team, that's a big problem for any coach.
So yes, it's a big problem. But because of the way Slot's team plays, especially play this season, his game was very much modeled around his midfield, right? So
Right.
Van Dijk is great, Salah is great, but the job Gravenberg, McAllister, Soboslai, when those three players were fit and played, did, it's actually what changed the style from the club style to the Slot
Hmm.
style. It's what he did with midfield. Unfortunately for him, he doesn't have another Gravenberg, he doesn't have another McAllister. It is Curtis Jones who can do a job or two, but it's not necessarily the same. So when
Right.
those three midfielders haven't been available to injury or fatigue, his team has never been on the same wavelength. And we saw it again. It's Jarrell Kwanzaa who is defending alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold. We know those two defenders. They are not great at it. So it puts extra pressure on that side of the team because Mo Salah won't track back. You've got Alexander-Arnold, and there's no Konate to run across to cover the tracks.
Mm.
So when he brings in those fringe players who are not on the same level, he struggles. So Liverpool have got a massive summer to come up. Maybe they sign Garnes, Mohamed Kudus, and other players to beef up the quality they have in the side.
We definitely will be talking about Mohamed Kudus and his potential transfer to any top side in Europe, especially in England, because there have been rumors about Liverpool, possibly Arsenal, chasing after his signature. But we also had those rumors when he was at Ajax before he moved to West Ham United. So we wait to see what exactly happens there. But also, let's look at some of the other results before we move on. And Manchester United, the guys here I'm talking to today will not like this part of the conversation, but we still got to do it. Manchester United lost to Brentford by 4 goals to 3. In fact, they were losing by 4 goals to 1 until the last few minutes. Until there was a bit of salvation from Ganacho and Amad Diallo, making it 4-3, making it, a lot more
A
um,
respectable and
a
acceptable
respectable
defeat.
scoreline
Scoreline.
Still
than
a
it would
drawn
have been
defeat.
if the game ended just 5 minutes before those goals. But guys, let's just talk about Man United quickly within a minute before we move on to several other matters. Quickly, Sicho, I'll pick your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, look, Man United have switched off from the Premier League for a very long time. It's been like a month and over a month.
So I think it's two things, and it's not
Yeah,
just Man United; it's also Tottenham Hotspur.
yeah,
Now, that there's
yeah.
there's one argument that, and that's exactly what you were making, that they may have switched off from the Premier League because they know
Mhm.
their fate. They know they're not qualifying, they're not getting relegated, and they know they're not qualifying for Europe through the league standings, and so they have to then focus on the European competitions. That's one angle. The other
Yeah.
angle is it that the European competitions below the Champions League are so bad? Because think about it. It's also with Chelsea. Chelsea have been in and out of form in the Premier League, but they have been unsung in the European competition
Of
they
course,
play in.
that's for the
It's the
conference
same,
league there, and
and
that
it's the
one there is
same. It's the
matter.
same. It's. I mean, I think
Yeah,
genuinely, I think it's not a good look for the Europa League and the Conference League that you have teams that are not doing so well in their leagues dominating as well as Chelsea, Man United, and Spurs are doing in the two competitions they're playing. So, which of these angles is it? Is it that Europe is not as good as a Premier League and the Premier League competition that you would find in Crystal Palace and Fulham and
yeah,
Brentford and Bournemouth is
yeah.
higher than some of these other teams that are acclaimed in Europe, like Fiorentina and Atletico de Bilbao. All these teams. What is happening? Which of the
Both of
angles would you go with?
both of the points you're making can be true, and I think that Man
Hmm.
United in this case, Spurs have switched off the league because they know their fate. They will make top four. They will make in European places. They won't be relegated. Yes, so now that they are in the conversation to win an European trophy and use the back door to get to the Champions League, they are focusing a
Right.
lot more of their energy there. But the point you make is valid as well. that maybe
Right.
then it means it's not a good look on UEFA's other competitions when teams that are not good enough to play in the Premier League and are languishing in the base of the Premier League are looking to get into the final and they are beating everybody. United have not lost any game in the Europa League, and Spurs are going strong as well. But the other thing too is maybe, just maybe, the two managers are great cup managers, right? So they might not be necessarily good enough for the long haul in the Premier League, but when it comes to playing one-off games and setting up their teams to play in cup games, they could be great.
Hmm.
And that's why you've seen Ange Postecoglou's team coming into the Europa League and playing some different brand of football. They look a lot more careful. They are not as expansive as they've been in the Premier League. They are a lot more pragmatic, and they are going through to almost the
Right.
final. And Amorim's team, some way, somehow, find a way to get the results against all the odds in the Europa League. So I think it could be all the combinations. They've given up on the Premier League. The competition at the lower level of European competitions are not as great as we think it is, or the two managers have just found a way to produce magic with their teams in cup games, and that could be it.
Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on from the Premier League. But before I move on from that, Aston Villa beat Fulham by a goal to nil over the weekend. Leicester City have finally found a win. It was against Southampton. I don't even know if I should
Jordan,
count
you
it in a real
scored.
game.
Jordan, you scored a very
It's
good goal.
Jordan Ayew scored. Jordan
Yeah,
Ayew scored, and
very
that
good
is
goal.
also good for
Very
him.
good goal.
And it
Did you
was
see
a
Jamie
really, really
Vardy
good
though?
goal there.
Did you see what Jamie Vardy did though?
Tell me about it. What did he do?
So,
Referee Jamie
so,
Vardy.
so Jordan Ayew is running past the referee, and his elbow catches the face of the ref. So,
Right,
referee goes down. As the referee
right.
goes down, Southampton get the ball and about to take hits Leicester on the counter. The referee is down on the turf. Jamie Vardy runs to the referee, grabs the referee's whistle, blows the whistle to stop the game because the referee was down. He's a different character, man. So Southampton on the
Absolutely,
counter,
and
Jamie Vardy
when
stops them.
I didn't watch the match, but when I saw that video, I was like, this guy, and it's not just blowing the whistle as if he's just grabbing attention. He wasn't there looking for
Yeah,
any cameras on him. He just blew the whistle and he just walked
yeah.
away.
Walk
Yeah,
away.
It was like,
I'm
I just
done.
came here to stop the match. I'm
I'm
done.
done.
What a character. What a character.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everton drew 2-2 with Ipswich, and Newcastle also drew 1-1 with Brighton Hove Albion. And that is the reason why Chelsea have closed the gap on them. And then West Ham United also drew 1-1 with Tottenham Hotspur. So those are the results in the English Premier League, just so you know what the standings look like right now. And we already know Liverpool champions with 82 points. Arsenal have 67 points and are second, but they're just 3 points off Manchester City. What that tells me is that in the next few games, if Arsenal actually drop more points, say they draw 2 games out of the remaining 3, and Man City actually win all their games, the unthinkable could happen.
Yeah.
Arsenal could drop to third.
Or fourth.
Third.
Of
Could
course.
end their season, their Premier League season, third. And it's very dicey considering, they also lost their first leg semi-final UEFA Champions League clash against PSG. We'll get there. But the season could just become a whole different story with the remaining few games they have. And I think they are toying with the season and the legacy they want
And
to
if they
leave
lose
behind. But
against
Manchester
PSG
City,
in the second leg, which we'll talk about, if they lose against PSG in the second leg, which again we'll get to, it could
Yeah, yeah.
deflate their entire season, and maybe they
Season.
wouldn't have
I'm telling you.
Everything they've
the
done.
confidence to go and win that
I'm
game.
telling you. I'm
Everything they've
telling
done.
you.
Massive.
But I can see you guys already itching to talk about the Champions League, but we'll get
Yeah.
there. And then there's also there's Newcastle United in fourth with 63 points, and they are just 4 points off Arsenal, and could also be another team that could topple Arsenal depending on Arsenal's results. Arsenal have their season firmly in their hands. They just have to make sure they continue to pick up maximum points in the remaining 3 games. Chelsea complete the top 5 with 63 points. They have the same goal difference, somewhat-ish against Newcastle United, but Nottingham Forest have had their season deflated. They have 60 points and they are 6th, and they were 3rd just a few weeks ago, and they've been 3rd for such a long time. But it just catches up with them if you don't have experience in fighting for stuff like this, especially with the kind of competitions they've played in and the energy that they have put into this. Now, let's move on from there. Let's go straight to the Italian Serie A. And it has become one of the most interesting title races in Europe. And I'm talking about Napoli and Inter Milan. We all know what Inter Milan have done. In the last few weeks, they haven't been themselves. They dropped points back to back, and people say it's maybe because of their games in the UEFA Champions League, and also, mind you, they have had massive injuries. Simeone Inzaghi has had to deal with a lot of injuries. Even against Barcelona, there were some injury concerns in there, but his side Inter won against Verona by a goal to nil. Napoli also won against Lecce, but this is what the results and the standings are. The standings in the Serie A. So Napoli have 77 points, Inter have 74 points, just 3 points separate them with 3 games to go. Guys, let's talk about this. This is really, really interesting. Inter should have been far gone by now, except for the last 3 weeks or so. Citro, I'll start with you. You keep your eye on the Serie A lot.
Yeah. Look, I think it started in that first leg against Bayern Munich, and
Mm,
it ran into the second leg. Getting to the end of that second leg, you saw a lot of the Inter players cramping. They looked really jaded and tired. The game that followed that was the game against Bologna, where they lost the game in the very last minutes. So Orsolini scores a brilliant goal in that game. They lose it. Then they go on to play in the Coppa Italia semi-final, lose 3-0 to Milan, a Milan team that hasn't been great this season. Then all of a sudden, doubts starts creeping in. There's a little bit of panic because Napoli are picking up the results. And then AS Roma also happens 1-0. And they've got Champions League to think about, which we will get to. But the biggest problem for Inter now it's not about if they can win the rest of their games. It's about which team that is coming up against Napoli that is capable of stopping Napoli. Because for the next 3 games that Napoli have got, Napoli are playing against bottom or second bottom part of the table, or second half of the table, right? Or bottom 10 part of the table. And so
right.
they will play against Genoa at the Maradona, and then they'll play
Mhm.
against Parma away from home. Then they'll end their season against Cagliari at the Maradona. When you look at these 3 games, Napoli are in pole position to get 9 points from this game. So for Inter, it's not a question of if they can win the rest of their games. It's a matter of who can help them stop Napoli. And at the moment, the answer is pointing to a no. Considering Inter have now also got their eye on that second leg against Barcelona, how much energy will that suck out of them? How much emotional turmoil will they go through in that game to be able to be ready for the weekend's action when they take up their opponent? So there is plenty hanging on the Serie A this season, and at the moment it is Napoli who look favorites, if you ask me, to go on and win it.
Right. Akomia, let me come to you on that
Yeah.
because Antonio Conte is a title winning machine. He's done it in Italy several times with Juventus. He's done it with Inter Milan. He's done it in England. He failed at Tottenham Hotspur because everyone fails at Tottenham Hotspur. He's gone to Napoli. He's looking like someone who can really do this. Do you think in the last 3 games, his experience in winning league titles could actually come to play? Do you think Napoli get to win this? Do you think Inter Milan bounce back? Does the Champions League affect Inter Milan at all? What are your thoughts?
Mhm. I think having a playoff at the end of the season could have been really good.
Bro, I was looking forward to that thing.
Yes,
I was looking forward to
Napoli,
that thing, bro.
Napoli and Inter Milan. It has only happened once in the history of the Italian Serie A, and it was
Yeah.
between Bologna and Inter Milan back in 1963 and 1964. The
Right.
synergy in this particular situation has to evolve around when Bologna is on top form, especially playing back-to-back European competitions or qualifying for the top four. Because in 62-63, they qualified for the top four, and in 63-64, under Fulvio Bernardini, they were so much consistent and they fought for the league title. A whole lot of issues, drug tests here and there, and everything. But finally, at the end of the season, they had to play playoffs with Inter Milan, where they won by 2 goals to 0. Anything can happen, especially when there is Parma. I know for Genoa, okay, good, I understand. Cagliari, good, they can find their way around them. But Parma is part of the six sisters or seven sisters of the Italian Serie A, the founding fathers of the Italian Serie A. Some of these games, it does not matter with form. We've seen Parma against Juventus, we've seen Parma against AC Milan, we've seen Parma against Inter Milan. There's a different energy Parma uses to play against some of these sides. And we call them the draw masters this season because most of the games where you expect them to lose, they'll draw. So when you're even going to your betting sites and a lot of things, we advise people that when you go, you can pick Parma for a draw because they are draw masters in the league this particular season. So that is one game I'll be looking out for. to actually cause a problem for Napoli and Antonio Conte. But Antonio Conte is so much experienced within this league that he knows what he's doing. And when he's also playing one match a week, I don't think you can literally doubt what he has in store for any other club that he actually meets. And I think Simone Inzaghi, on the other hand side, they may want to win the Italian Serie A, but I think their full focus is on the Champions League. They've won the Coppa Italia. They've won the Supercoppa d'Italia. They've won the Italian Serie A. I think per what they've done and the projects they've done, the players they've brought in, the level of experience they've gotten, they played the final in 22-23. And I know that they are so much into the Champions League than even the league. If they fail to win the Champions League, they might be termed as a failure, despite even winning the league title, because we've seen them win the Premier League, the Italian Serie A for quite some time now. We've seen them also pick up the Coppa Italia. So if they are not able to win the Champions League, that is where a lot of questions will be raised about Simone Inzaghi and his cup kind of stuff around. We saw something like this around Antonio Conte when he was at Juventus. If you quite remember, Juventus had issues with him, especially with his performances in European competitions. And they felt that
Yeah.
you've won the league so many times, but we need the Champions League. You need to take us to the finals. We need to win the Champions League. And that is where Antonio Conte fell short, and they needed to part ways at some point in time. So I think with Simone Inzaghi, he has gotten to that standard where he needs the Champions League even more than the league. I'm not saying they allow the league to slip off their hands. I'm not saying that. But I'm only trying to say that where they find themselves now, they will rather prioritize the Champions League than even the Italian Serie A.
And that could definitely be a problem. So we definitely will be going for a break. When we come back, we are going to be dealing with the UEFA Champions League. We'll be talking about Harry Kane as well. And then we'll be getting into the Super Clash Hearts versus Kotoko. And then, of course, there's a quiz. Stay with us.
You are listening to FC Pitchside Podcast, part of the Footy Center lineup and powered by Ultra Press Media Company.
Welcome back to FC Pitchside Podcast with me, Thierry Nyan, and I'm doing this with Philip Sicho Atrim and Michael Akomia. Now, I just want you to know that if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe right now, because you could be missing out on great content right here, on FC Pitchside Podcast. And also remember to like, this video. It goes a long way to help us, and share as well to your friends. Let's go straight to Germany, and we'll spend a couple of minutes there because we all expected Bayern Munich to win the title, especially after the dismal start, to life in the Bundesliga by Bayer Leverkusen. But the big story there isn't Bayern Munich winning their 34th Bundesliga shield. It is Harry Kane actually winning a trophy. This guy has been immune to winning trophies the whole time. Now, this is going to raise an interesting question. If Harry Kane was the problem, we all knew he was never the problem because he's a master of goals. Or is it Tottenham Hotspur? They are probably cares, because if you're not cares, why would you sack Jose Mourinho, 1 week before a cup final? Why? But guys, the whole conversation isn't about Tottenham Hotspur. It really is about Bayern Munich and winning another title. Vincent Kompany has won his first league title. Championship doesn't count. He's won his first major league title, and Bayern Munich have won their 34th. And Harry Kane has won his first ever as a human being. First ever. So the guys will break it down for me. Guys, how have Bayern Munich done this? Sicho, let me start with you.
Yeah, it's a combination of things, really. It's the fact that Bayer Leverkusen, the last season's champions, couldn't repeat the same magic about them, and it was really magical what they did last season, going throughout the whole league season without losing games, and the way they came back in games to secure victories at the very last minute of game. They did it like it was almost every other week they were winning games the last minute. This season wasn't quite the same, and also what affected them was a lot of players seem to be headed out in the summer. So their captain Jonathan Tah seemed to be leaving. There were conversation about Florian Wirtz, whether he was going to stay or was going to leave. Victor Boniface was linked to Saudi Arabia. Patrick Schick, we're not sure if. So they had a lot of play. Frimpong, who's a very good player for them. There were lots of players in that group that looked like they were going to leave in the summer. A lot of them started the season with their heads not right in the right places. And maybe Alonso couldn't get the same tune out of the team. So last season champions were Sapa. In comes Bayern Munich. if there isn't a team having a magical season in the Bundesliga, the default winners are Bayern. So last season, without Leverkusen's magical season, Bayern would still have won, and even with the numbers they had from last season. And so this
Right.
season is returned to default setting. Bayern are champions, and credit to Vincent Company, because to be honest, this Bayern team is not the strongest Bayern team we've seen in the last 2 decades or so, but he's managed to be able to give them a bit more of stability and a bit more of consistency with results. And Harry Kane, obviously winning his first title, is bagged in the goals as always. And I'm delighted for him that for the talent that he's produced on the pitch, for the lovely football that he's given us, football has rewarded him with a massive trophy like the Bundesliga.
Akomia, Harry Kane winning a trophy should definitely boost his confidence, because he's been quite dismal for England in major tournaments, but now he has a taste of winning trophies. Do you think this would impact Thomas Tuchel's England going into the next major tournaments? Do you think this impacts Harry Kane's career? Will he now come back to the Premier League after winning a trophy, because what he wanted was to win trophies? He's won a first. Do you think he craves for more, or he wants to come back to the Premier League and shatter that record that Alan Shearer holds? What do you think will place higher on his mind?
I was just trying to say that football has won, especially looking at what Harry Kane has gone through his days at Tottenham Hotspur. You look at the Bayern Munich team, and I actually feel that this is one of the weakest Bayern Munich teams I've actually watched, to be very honest. And he needed to do something extra, especially replacing a striker like Robert Lewandowski, who joined Barcelona over a year ago. And then you look at the number of goals he scored for FC Bayern Munich, scoring like 40 plus goals every single season. They needed someone who can come in and give them those goals. So he gave them the goals, and he has given them the league. And I'm happy for him. I know maybe with time, he will come back to the Premier League, or more or less move somewhere else and try and continue to win. But for now, he will stay at Bayern Munich, try to win the Champions League with them, try to win the DFB Pokal with them, and thereon he can see what he can do. But the English captain needed this to help his side, especially going into major competitions with the World Cup right ahead of us, and even some qualification games that is going to come forward for the English national team. Imagine in the dressing room, you are speaking, you have Jude Bellingham, you have most of these guys, they have won the Champions League and all of these stuff, middle trophy, and Harry Kane is in the middle trying to ginger them. We can win this, we can do that.
He has nothing to show.
It's kind of awkward. But for now,
Yeah.
he can be bold, he can hit his chest. And I think Tottenham Hotspur, then he said about them, the better. Because Modric,
We'll get to Tottenham one day.
I can see Harry Kane play
Yeah.
for a team like Liverpool. Like if Liverpool paid top dollar for Harry Kane to return, like that.
I see him playing for Chelsea. If he's,
Tottenham Hotspur player,
because we can pay, we have the money, we can pay.
Tottenham
I mean, we
Hotspur
pay
to
better than
Chelsea.
Liverpool anyway.
People are paying. Young people are buying babies. Harry Kane is no more a baby, so allow him.
But I mean, Maresca has suggested though that he's encouraged the sporting directors to sign more experienced players next season. I don't think that's going to happen.
And,
But I also don't think Harry Kane is ever going to play for Chelsea. I mean, he's
Bayern
Tottenham.
Munich are not
the
that
London
Sterling Club team.
rivalry.
Yeah, the London rivalry. There's no way he plays for Arsenal or for Chelsea.
Once
It's
he
not
comes
going to
back to
happen.
England, for me, Liverpool would be a massive ideal place for him.
Yeah. I mean, if Man United were on good form, he could have signed for Man United.
Absolutely.
Because Man United need a striker, but unfortunately, I don't think they can match his ambitions.
I think we can do something for him when we are back on form. We can bring him like you did with Mike Lowry. Come and win the Premier League and go back.
Yeah, but I mean, that was when you could promise the Premier League.
Those by 2028, we'll be winning the Premier League. So we'll bring.
Yeah, that is on paper. That is what Jim Ratcliffe has put on paper. I don't know if you, as a fan, if you believe it. But anyway, guys, let's go straight to the UEFA Champions League, because, of course, on FC Pitchside Podcast, there's no way we finish a show without talking about the UCL, what happened last week, and what we expect to happen this particular week. We have just about max 10 minutes for the UEFA Champions League.
This is the FC Pitchside Podcast, the first in an exciting lineup of podcasts by Footy Centre. Footy Centre is where you'd read your intriguing opinions and daily stories about football. From Europe's biggest leagues, the Champions League, international matches, and for Ghanaian fans, get closer to your favorite national teams.
So you're still keeping tabs on FC Pitchside Podcast. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, please remember to follow the channels and rate us very highly. If you are watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and like the video. It goes a long way to help us. I'm still here with Sicho and Akomia, and we are now zooming into the UEFA Champions League. We also what happened over the past week. That's Arsenal losing at the Emirates against Paris Saint-Germain. It's a marginal defeat. And also Barcelona drawing against Inter Milan, a very high scoring draw. We'll discuss that as well. But I just want to ask my guys, per what they've seen in the first games between these four sides, who are the favorites going into the second leg and who makes the final itself? I'll start with Sicho on this one. Sicho, oh no, let me start with Akomia. Akomia, let me pick your thoughts on
Thank you very
Arsenal
much.
against Paris Saint-Germain. We also what happened. Partey wasn't part of the game, but Arsenal are promising fireworks if he returns.
I think this is the opposite of 1994 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup semi-final. 1-0 in favor of Arsenal in the first leg. The second leg ended 1-1, and Arsenal qualified to the final to win the Cup Winners' Cup. I think the same thing is going to happen this time around, but I think it's really going to stretch to penalty shootout, where Arsenal might go and win by 1 goal difference far away in France.
You just
It will
spoke like a prophet.
it gets to the penalty shootouts. That is where I strongly believe that football will definitely reward Paris Saint-Germain. That is how I say it. That
Okay.
football will reward Paris Saint-Germain and they will qualify to the final of the Champions League. For Inter Milan and Barcelona, when you post this on the handle, the Barcelona fans will kill me, but I don't care. But I think where it has gotten to, let me be very honest, Barcelona have a certain style now that no matter
Yeah.
how many you score them, they will have to outscore you. But
Right.
it has definitely not happened with Inter Milan. Looking at the first leg that we watched, Lewandowski is coming back. But let's not forget, Lautaro Martinez was rested. Marcus Thuram was also rested. Dumfries was rested for this particular game. And I don't remember the last time Inter Milan lost a Champions League semi-final at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium.
Hmm.
And in the last 3 years, they remain undefeated at the Giuseppe Meazza in the Champions League in the last 3 seasons.
Right.
So you would
Right.
understand the kind of quality they possess at home. Even if Barcelona might find a way to qualify, it's actually not going to be throughout a 90 minutes where they win against Inter Milan by 2-1 or even 3-1 or something of that sort. It might even take something like penalty shootout. But from where I stand and what Inter Milan has done and how they are approaching this game and how ready they are, I'll just give Inter Milan 55% chance of qualifying ahead of FC Barcelona.
So you are thinking it's going to be an Inter Milan versus Paris Saint-Germain final. That's going to be a new one.
Yeah.
We wait to see if that really materializes. But Sicho, what do you think?
Yeah, I've already said Inter Milan are going to win the Champions League this season, which means Barca will be eliminated. I've also already said
The
I
Barca
think
fans
that
will kill you.
yeah, I'm ready for them. I mean, but yeah, I just think I think Inter have got what it takes. Look, Inter were not informed when they went to play against Barcelona. They still managed to get 3 goals. Barca were at home, they got 3 goals back. At the Miedza, I'm not too sure that the Inter set pieces are brilliant, right? And Inter don't necessarily need to play well to get goals. But Inter's defending can improve. But we know Barca's limitation when it comes to that high line, and Inter can use their fullbacks to get in behind. I think Inter will win or go through to the final. I also think that PSG will be too much for Arsenal. Even though Partey returns, I still think that PSG's midfield it's incredibly good, and the way
The
their midfield is
football
able to
Vitinha and Neves play, my
Neves and
God.
Fabian Ruiz,
They are too good.
And
it's
Roos, yeah, my
outrageous.
God.
Too
I,
good.
I don't know if you guys have realized, and I think it also showed a bit when Ousmane Dembele's goal. Enrique has commissioned his midfielders to it's a novelty in midfield running. You see his midfielders running away from Ousmane Dembele, basically pulling away the opposition midfield with them wherever they run,
Yeah,
and Dembele just basically has a free path in the hole between midfield and defense. It's happened so many times this season where they sort of
yeah.
make like opposite runs. They are moving away from Ousmane Dembele, and you need to keep tabs on these guys. And it happened with Odegaard and Rice also joining these guys, basically trying to man mark them. So moving away from Ousmane Dembele, who has the ball. And I don't know how that happens, but I think in the spur of the moment in football, you've also been told to man mark certain players, regardless where the football is. And maybe
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Yes, I mean that's a great observation because it also happened in the game against Liverpool, especially in the second leg at Anfield, when the same thing happened. What PSG midfielder are great at doing is they have a way of pinging your midfielders, right? So Vitinha will occupy one, John Neves will occupy one, Fabio will occupy the other if there are others. But also, they always have a spare man who is free. So in the case of the goal that Arsenal conceded, Kvaratskhelia was the free spare man on the line. So just like you described, once
Mm,
PSG's midfielders were able to sap Arsenal's midfield
mm.
away from a space where Dembele could get into, he picked up the ball on the half turn. He could find Kvaratskhelia, who was the spare
Sicho,
man on the
did you
line. Yeah,
realize that how they scored the first goal against Liverpool? That is the same thing they did against Arsenal.
Exactly.
it's what
Exactly
I'm
the point.
saying. That
That's what Sicho is saying.
it's what I'm saying. That
That's the same
and
thing they did.
yeah, it's exactly. So what they do is they'll occupy your midfielders and draw them into, especially the go against Arsenal. Typical example. If you see what Vitinha did to Odegaard, Vitinha pulled Odegaard close to his centre backs, and that opened up the midfield because John Neves and Fabio Ruiz were pinning Merino and Declan Rice. Now Dembele is the free false nine, so he comes into center circle under no pressure, picks the ball, turns, finds Kvaratskhelia, and once he gives the ball to Kvaratskhelia, Timber is approaching to mark him, but Declan Rice makes a mistake. Instead of staying with Dembele on the
Mhm.
D, he goes to join up with Timber to double up so that if Kvaratskhelia get past him, he could be there to mop up. But in so doing, the ball comes to Dembele on the edge of the box. He is free and he scores. I just think PSG's dynamism and the fact that the front players are mobile enough with the fullbacks who can get into very good positions and the control they've got in the middle of the park. I don't see how they beat Arsenal. I don't see how Arsenal beats them, especially at the Parc des Princes. But if there's a team in Europe that is capable of bottling big nights at home, it's PSG. And that is where
Right.
Arsenal fans will be licking their lips that they are capable of dropping the ball there. But I fancy PSG to go through.
You fancy PSG to go through, and that's exactly what it could be. Remember, you're still watching FC Payside podcast, but we're moving away from the UEFA Champions. But actually, before we do that, Lamine Yamal, guys, I think we need to spare just a minute on him because my God, what a footballer this guy is. He's making football look so easy, and I think
It's a
that
joke.
when you're judging football by pure numbers, he might not even be in your top five,
Yeah.
but if you watch football, if you're not the type that just basically focuses on results, oh, when I share who scored, but you are actually watching the game, Lamine makes football look an extremely easy job. And for a 17-year-old to do this against fully grown men who can possibly be his father, he's literally toying with senior men in football. I just want to know what you guys have to say briefly, 30 seconds each on Yamal.
It's
I think it won't be an episode without discussing Yamal, to be
yeah.
honest.
I think one thing that helps him though is that even though he's 17, he's young, he's got a bit of self belief and arrogance about him. I
Yeah,
mean, there's a way to make that good, and it can easily turn into a bad thing. I think at the
right.
moment he's using it well, but it's also his body frame is a key thing. I mean, all of us here have played the game before, maybe not at the highest
Yeah.
level, but his body frame is so good that he
Yeah.
doesn't need so much space to weave through. And it's the way he manipulates the ball with his feet that he doesn't necessarily need to be at an angle to be able to pick a pass, cross a ball, or dribble. So in the goal he scored against Inter, there wasn't any moment in the defending of Inter that looked like somebody could take the ball off him because of
Mm,
the way he glides, right? So
yeah,
the ball is close to you, yet so far from you. The player's body
exactly.
is close to you, yet in the split second, he's fainted his body left and is going right. And it's just an incredible player to watch. And even as a football fan, when I'm watching him, I can't predict his next move because when he takes the ball to his left, in my mind, he's going to shoot or he's going to cross. But he's able to, in a split second, off beat, shift the ball to his right foot quickly. And by the time you realize it's back to his left foot, and defenders are falling all over the place. He's just a magical footballer to watch. I really do love watching him.
I mean, when you look at the numbers for the UEFA Champions League for Barcelona and their front three, the goals, I mean, Rafinha has 12 goals, Lewandowski has 11 goals, Lamine Yamal has 5 goals. Now, that's some way of the top two. But
Yeah.
you listen to people in and around the game, and like Simeone Inzaghi said, he is so good they had to put 3 players on him
Yeah.
for this game. And he said he's never seen a player like him in the last 8 or 9 years. I think Messi and Ronaldo fans will have a lot to say about that because Ronaldo and Messi were still very much in their pomp 9 years ago. But I mean, it just goes to show the hype around this boy and what people think of him.
Porque bueno, mientras gane, no me pueden decir nada. Cuando me ganen, sí.
He's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. His decision making at his age, his movements, and I love something about his upper body. He doesn't actually stress it so much, and he makes his foot speak for him most of the time. And I think there's one thing about him that makes him distinct from the other teenagers, the mentality that he carries around. I think the kid is a winner. And the takeoff point was when Spain won the Euros, and he was one of the best players of the side. So more or less, he has seen it all. He has conquered Europe. He has met top nations with quality players at the Euros. He has done his part. So when it comes to Barcelona, it's just a normal thing he needs to do and make sure that he gets the results for FC Barcelona. He looks more like Neymar kind of a player, not more or
Yeah.
less like a Lionel Messi. Yes. So if you are
Yeah.
trying to do the comparison with Lionel Messi, I don't think it actually tallies over there, even with numbers and quality. But we are talking about style is with Neymar and potential is with Neymar. That is where you can
Right.
actually pick up inspiration from and make sure that he continues to do what he's doing for FC Barcelona. He's
Okay.
unbelievably good.
Okay, that obviously is cemented by everyone around the game, and the guys here have also added their voices to the Yamal praise because my God, what a player he is, and I really cannot wait to see his maturation, to see where he goes, as a footballer in the next 5-6 years. What is he going to become? It's interesting that at this age, with the likes of Vinicius Junior and Kylian Mbappe and so many very good players still playing football, it looks as if people are already pegging Yamal to be the best player in the world. And I think we can have a whole episode about if a youngster at his age can still be declared the best player in the world regardless of his age. Because some people think you're too young to be named. You'll continue to win best young player until you are of a certain age.
I
Some
think
people
only
say
one player has
it
defied that
really is about the
particular
quality. If you're
odds.
displaying the quality even at 15, we should give it to you, especially
Yeah.
if you're doing it at the highest level. So I think we'll have that conversation later.
Yes. Well, I
But
think Ronaldo de Lima is the only player to have defied that particular odds. At
because
such
he's
a age.
because he's Ronaldo. Because he's Ronaldo. Let's go straight to Ghana football now, and quickly, we'll be talking about Hearts of Oak and Kumasi Asante Kotoko. It was another game that was very hyped. It was another game that had a lot of expectations around it, but just couldn't live up to the expectations. No goals. A draw between Hearts and Kotoko. It doesn't really say a lot about these two teams. It just basically tells us where they are. But my guys here have been following the local sport more than I have, to be honest. And I'll just leave the microphone to them. Akomia, please start with me on Hearts and Kotoko. What did we see? What did we notice? What did we observe?
I think it has lost its relevance, especially when you look at Koroko and Hearts. They are not fighting for the league. They are not fighting for the FA Cup. They are not. They are literally not fighting for anything. There's only Kumasi Asante Koroko, who is trying to fight for the league title, and he wanted to win this particular game against Accra House of Folk. Apart from that, I don't think there was anything to speak about this game in terms of quality, broadcasting. Everything was just poor around this particular game. People did not even actually attend the game as we've seen in previous years. Even the one that was played in Kumasi, where Koroko won by 1 goal to 0, we saw a very good attendance as compared to this one that we saw at Accra Sports Stadium. But before the game, there were a lot of things that Koroko did, had to focus on, was doing behind the scenes that I was really surprised. Theory, these people still rely on voodoo and all of these things going into such games,
It's Ghana football,
mind
isn't it?
games, trying to do something together. Because Kotoko went to Accra without two players and their coach on the bus, just because they believe that if they join the bus or go by road, they are going to lose. So Kwame Poku was in Accra by flight by 8 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
Karim Zito went by flight. So you look at all of these things. Hearts of Folk didn't want to release their lineup in time.
I'm laughing like
I
killer.
think 15 minutes before the game, that is when we saw the official lineup of Accra Hearts of Folk. And
15 minutes before the game. Wait. This is not supposed to be an Accra Hearts of Folk problem. There are rules and regulations, when it comes to every tournament. what are the rules and regulations when it comes to the Ghana Premier League? When is a team supposed to release their squad or their lineup for a game? Because what we know in Europe is that it's supposed to be an hour before the game. At
I
least
agree.
it's supposed to, at the very bare minimum, it's supposed to be 45 minutes before the game. How some people are able to release it a whole day before. Jose Mourinho has done that a number of times due to sheer arrogance, or basically saying he really doesn't care what happens in the game. But how do you, even if you want to hold your cards close to your chest, there are rules and regulations to follow. So how do you release your squad or your lineup 15 minutes before a game? That goes against the
Theory.
regulations.
The only time we saw the lineup was to go to the FA websites or try and speak with our VMs, our friends over there, who are the lineups, just to give us a screenshot or something of that sort. But the House of Folk handle from everywhere, you could not see the lineup. You just can't.
Sito, let me bring you into the conversation.
It's kind of frustrating. Like
Well,
I was
I feel like Kumia's pain, but yeah, look, it's the attendance was bad. The game wasn't properly marketed. I think also obviously because we know the problems with the Ghana Premier League. We're not even going to overstate it here. But I think that looking at the game in itself, Kotoko have missed a huge opportunity because it was a weekend where the top of the table looked like if Kotoko had grabbed the 2 more points to make it 3, Kotoko would have gone to 53 points. And that would have been only a point behind the league leaders now, Nations FC. Because obviously, Gold Stars had a shocking result against Karela. Everybody thought Gold Stars would beat Karela, but in the end, it was Karela who did Kotoko a favor though. But Kotoko couldn't capitalize. They beat them out. Karela actually beat Gold Stars at home by a 1-0. And the Nations FC has capitalized on that to win against Accra Lions by a 1-0. So Nations now have climbed up to the table with 54 points, and Kotoko are still within, touching distance. They are 3 points behind the league leaders. So I think that Kotoko will look at this game as a missed opportunity to have gone a point within the top. And then now they are 3 points behind the league leaders, which also is a good result considering other results, because now with the games that are left, Kotoko are still within touching distance of winning the league. I think that is the only positive that Kotoko fans and Kotoko can pick from this game.
Right. Now, I'm not going to, spare any more time on this. We are now going to a very fun time of the show, and this should be just a few minutes, and then we wrap up this episode, which has been a very exciting one. Let's make it even more exciting. Now, guys, are you ready for the quiz?
Yep.
And today, the quiz is not going to be a player zigzag. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I'm going to introduce something different. I'm going to ask you if you guys remember in 2005, a Ghanaian player was added to the top 30 players in the FIFA Best Awards. In 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is not who that player is. The question is, I want you guys to go in, to take turns to name all the 30 players in the top 30 of the FIFA Best 2005. Okay? It's not supposed to be in any particular order, but here is a catch. This game can end as soon as the first answer. And the reason I'm saying that is whoever gets his first answer wrong, the game is ended. The other person wins. So if someone mentions someone like Haris Akor, and Haris Akor is not a part of the top 30, the other person wins. Does that make sense? So think, I am looking at everybody, so nobody can cheat. Nobody can cheat. You cannot Google, you cannot do anything. I am looking for the top 30 players in the FIFA Best Awards 2005. Let's start with you, Sicho.
Frank Lampard.
That's correct. Frank Lampard was actually number 2 on the list.
Ronaldinho
is correct because he won the FIFA Best Award that particular year. It started well. Let's go. Sicho. You have all the time in the world. Deco is on the list as well. He was also on the list. Let me just put it that way. He was also on the list.
Zinedine
Zidane is correct. He was 2 places above Deco.
And then John Terry.
Was John Terry on this list? It looks like John Terry is not on the list, and John Terry is not on the list. So Sito has lost this one. Sicho has lost this one, so John Terry is not on the list. Let me just give you the full list though. Ronaldinho, Frank Lampard, Samuel Eto'o,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thierry Henry, Adriano, Andra Shevchenko, Steven Gerrard, Kaká, Paolo Maldini, Michael Ballack, Ronaldo, and I'm talking about Ronaldo, the original Ronaldo, Didier
Nazario.
Drogba, Zinedine Zidane, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Deco, Juan
was
Roman Riquelme, Robinho, David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, Cristiano Ronaldo, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Michael Essien, Raul,
was there.
Pavel Nedved, Ian Robin, Cafu, JJ Okocha, Roberto Carlos, Alessandro Nesta, and Gianluigi Buffon. So that was a top 30. And unfortunately, John
I
Terry
could have
was not on
done
the
like
list. So
10 though,
Akomia
because
won.
yeah.
Akomia won this particular round, and of course, all plaudits to you. You get your flowers. Get your flowers. Get your flowers. You get your flowers for winning this one.
Revenge.
Yeah, that's a very good revenge. That's a very good revenge there. So now I want you guys to name. So when Roman Abramovich, and it's good because both of you are Man United fans, so I'm not giving you a Man United question. But when Roman Abramovich joined Chelsea, okay, he signed quite a number of players in the first summer after he was announced the new owner of the club. Can you take turns in naming who those players were?
Didier Drogba.
You said Didier Drogba?
Yes.
I don't think that's correct. I genuinely don't think that's correct. Didier Drogba signed the year after. And that means this game ends just when
It's
it began.
over.
But I think we need to give him some grace. I first answer is wrong. First answer is wrong. So the question still lives on. The question still lives on, and the round
Okay.
still exists. And Sicho, you've not
Okay.
won this one. I think a first
Thank you
mistake
very much.
isn't fair.
Damien Duff.
You say Damien Duff. Damien Duff is correct, actually. Damien Duff was a third player to be signed. Akomia, let's go.
2002, 2003.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to say Drogba.
No.
He was a marquee signing, but he wasn't one of the first players to be signed. Akomia, let's go.
I'm trying to get. I know he's not the one, but I have to mention it. Sicho will win.
Okay, if you miss this one, then that's it. I'm telling you.
Who do you have on your mind?
I think I was thinking about someone like Joe Cole.
Joe Cole is correct, actually. Joe Cole was a second player to be signed, so you still have a bit of lifeline. Sicho, let's go quickly.
Oh man. Did Makelele join in that summer?
That is correct. Makelele was the first player to be signed, actually. So, and he was the first marquee signing to leave Real Madrid in the Galactico era. Now, Akomia, I come back to you. Akomia was hoping that Sicho was going to make a mistake, but it didn't happen. So you guys basically have mentioned the top 3 players to be signed. Let's move on, guys. Who
That's
else
tough,
was
That's
signed
tough.
by Roman Abramovich in his first
That's so tough.
summer signing spree?
Peter Cech.
Peter Cech. That is a bold call. Why would you say Peter Cech? Why would you mention Peter Cech? Especially because he was not part of this particular list. And so Sicho wins this particular round. Let's give it up for Sicho. Let's give it up for Sicho. One last question, though. And one last question. And this is going to be another list that I'm going to be giving out. There are quite a number of managers that have signed or worked for Manchester United since Sir Alex Ferguson. Can you name all managers taking turns, please?
David Moyes.
David Moyes, that's correct.
Louis van Gaal.
Louis van Gaal, that's correct too.
Jose Mourinho.
Jose Mourinho, that's correct.
Ryan Giggs.
Ryan Giggs, that's correct. I wasn't expecting you to remember that. That's correct.
Michael Carrick.
Michael Carrick, he managed just one game. Does he count?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael Carrick, that's correct. Let's move on.
Rude Van Nistelrooy.
Rude.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Ralph Rangnick.
Ralph Rangnick, correct?
Eric Ten Hag.
Eric Ten Hag. That's
I was avoiding that name.
Eric
I wanted you to
Ten
mention
Hag.
it.
That is absolutely correct. Eric Ten Hag. That's absolutely correct.
Ruben Amorim.
Ruben Amorim. That is correct as well. Now that is it. Okay, now it's going to be one question. One question to split you guys. It's not going to be taking turns again. Just one question to split you guys. And now you guys have pushed me to the wall. I have to think through a question. In 2015, there was a penalty shootout between Ghana and Ivory Coast in the AFCON final. Who missed the last penalty for Ghana?
Dominica Dia.
Hey, you got the answer before I even Googled.
Dominica Dia, come on. Check it out. Eradimewu.
Please.
2015.
Yeah, 2015.
2015. Oh, he missed the first one. He missed the first one.
It's not Dominica Dia. There are two names in my mind, so I'll see. I'll gamble with one. Free Aqua.
Ooh. Wait, 2015. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking 2010.
You are talking 2010 World Cup.
I'm thinking John Mensah and Adia. Like straight away, I'm thinking 2010. John Mensah and Adia.
So actually, both of you are wrong. Actually, both of you are wrong.
Frank Champon.
The person who missed it was the goalkeeper Razak Brahma.
Razak
He was
Brahma.
the last person to miss it, but I think
Razak Brahma was the last person to kick for Ghana, and then Barry saved it and scored his.
Yeah.
All right, so that is it, and I hope the editor is able to put all these things together, for an episode. But of course, it's been an exhilarating one. Thank you very much, guys, for making this a very successful one. Of course, I've been joined in this episode by Michael Akomia and Sicho. My name is Thierry Nyan. Please remember to subscribe and follow wherever you find your podcasts and wherever you find FC Pitchside podcast. We'll see you same time next week. Please, until then, keep well, enjoy yourself, and hopefully by the next time we see you, you'll be in even better spirits, no matter what kind of spirits you join us today with. I'll see you some other time.
FC Pitchside Podcast, part of the Footy Center lineup and powered by Ultra Press Media Company.